Hey, what's up? I have a really important video today for you to talk to you all about race and the words that we use when we talk about other ethnic groups and other people of color. So recently there's been, a lot of information out there in social media, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I think international students sometimes get confused about what's appropriate and what is correct, and in which context can you say certain words when you talk about different people of different races and ethnic groups. So I will go through what's currently happening in our culture right now in terms of race and in terms of what's politically correct when you're speaking about race or about something that happens in the news to someone. And if you have any questions, let me know, and I can always try to explain it a little bit more, but I know it's confusing a little bit for international students. So all right, let's get started.
For international students, this is a presentation about how to talk about race in America. First of all, I'd like to talk about a little bit of history. Why do Americans talk about race so much? This country was founded on racism and racial division when the Europeans first came to steal the land from the Native Americans, or they are otherwise known as Indians, who first came here. So because of this history, we have a situation in the United States where we talk about race differently than other countries. In addition, the United States was built on the backs of Black people. African slaves were brought to America to build this country. And then what happened is that the white slave owners and politicians created divisions and laws in describing people to make sure that people were kept separate and that the power was given to the white people. And of course, we know that the United States is a country of immigrants and a country of Native people, or Indian and Indigenous people. When immigration became common in the United States, it made people want to distinguish between the different races. So this is another reason why America talks so much about the differences in race. Another big moment in American history was the Civil Rights Movement. So you may have studied about Martin Luther King Jr. and about the Civil Rights Movement and the marches for equality that happened in the 1960s. This movement changed laws for Black people and changed the way people talk about race. So the first thing I want to start with is what not to say. I've actually heard some of my students use the word colored before to talk about Black people. Don't say colored when talking about Black people or African Americans. It's an old racist term from the 1900s until the early 1960s. So never use the word colored. You can see it in this picture here of a boy drinking out of a drinking fountain that was separated so the Black and white people could not drink from the same drinking fountain. So they used it to divide where people could go, where they could drink, all those kinds of things. Another really important word that you should never say is the N-word. So I can't actually say this word here in this presentation because it's so racist. So you might hear this word in a song, or sometimes comedians use it. So never use this word, even if you're trying to be funny or if you're singing a song. Only Black people can say this word. So look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. I can't write it here because it's so horribly racist. Check out this website for a list of racist or outdated terms used for each ethnic group. So this is the website here. This is Wikipedia, and they have a list of all of the racist or ethnic categories, and then they say what words are offensive. So you can look up here for lots of different terms that you should avoid. Okay, so let's talk about politically correct or PC terms. So they use this acronym PC to talk about terms that are, so what does PC mean? It means when the general public has accepted words as appropriate and not offensive to people. So these words are politically correct. Sometimes people just say PC. These words are PC. Okay, so let's start with Asian. In America, this word is used to describe anyone who comes from Eastern and Southeastern Asia. So China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, etc. So the United States differs from Europe, for example. In England, they use the word Asian to also describe people who come from India and Pakistan, whereas the United States doesn't generally talk about people from India and Pakistan as Asian. Asian American. So in America, we use, again, this term to describe anyone whose ancestors come from Eastern and Southeastern Asia, right? So again, China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. So I know that this is sometimes confusing for international students because, you know, this is such a huge part of the continent, right? Southeastern Asia. So it's a lot of different people, a lot of different cultures, but in the United States, people like to just group them all together. African American. In America, anyone who has any African ancestry is considered African American. So in the US, anyone with any mixture of black with another race is considered black. And you may be asking yourself, why? Why is that? So check out this website to learn more about why Americans think all people who are mixed or biracial are black if they have some African ancestry. So this is the website here. So how are black, white, biracial people perceived in terms of race? So this is a really good article that I suggest reading if you want to know more about the history of multiracial people in the United States and how this idea came to be that all people who have some black ancestry are considered black. It's different than in other countries. Okay, so then let's move on to the word black. I have a lot of students who ask me, is it really okay to say that people are black? Like they think that it sounds racist, right? I think in the past, the word black to describe people used to be derogatory or offensive, but nowadays it's become common, right? So recently this term has been used in a common way in the news and in everyday life. Caucasian. This term is used to describe white people with European ancestry. So white is also common. So just like we say black, we also say white. But Caucasian, for some reason, is this historical word that we've used nowadays to also describe anybody who has European ancestry. Indigenous, Native American, American Indian, or Indian. Okay, so this is very specific to North America and Alaska and Canada. So all these terms are used to describe people who originally lived on American land. So this picture is a picture of someone who is dressed up in some traditional costume. But of course, we know that nowadays people don't dress like this every day, right? This is just something that is used for ceremony or some celebration. There are many misconceptions about Indigenous, Native American, or Indian people. So I really suggest checking out this website to learn more about the problem of the misconceptions in the United States. This is the website here. Of course, I'm going to have a big advertisement on this. But this is the name of the title here. The 8 of the biggest misconceptions about people have about Native Americans. So this is a recent article that was written. This person here is participating in a Lakota language weekend. So Native American and Indigenous people look very different, just depending on, their history, depending on if they are mixed or which tribe they came from. So I suggest reading that article there. Okay, so Latinx. So this is a new term that has recently become popular to describe people from Latin American or Spanish and Portuguese ancestry. So why is there an X there? You might be asking yourself. Latino or Latina, those are Spanish words used for the masculine and feminine people who come from Latin America. Hispanic is also commonly used, but this is usually to describe someone who has Spanish-speaking origin. So if you're wondering why Latinx is a popular term used, check out this website for more information. What does Latinx mean exactly, right? So this is a good article to read about that. It's maybe confusing, like why is there an X there? And also it's interesting to see, the history of people from Latin America or Spanish-speaking countries. Why do people call them the way that they do? Okay, another word that we use is minority. So this is someone who is not in the racial majority. In the US, it's all non-white or non-Caucasian people. So let's look at the United States Census of race in 2019. So a census is when they count all the people in a country, right? And they put them into categories. So in 2019, the total population of the United States was about 320 million. Out of that, 76% are white. 18% Latino or Hispanic, or now we say Latinx. 13% Black. 5% Asian. And 2% Native American or Indian American or Indian. And 2% people consider themselves with having two or more races, right? So being biracial or mixed. This is the website that I have listed here. It's the U.S. Census website. And you can see, it puts everything into different categories of people. So it's a pretty big website, but they have lots of specific information about different aspects, even economic information if you're interested. All right, another term that we see a lot is people of color. This is a term for any group of people who are not white or Caucasian. Is people of color really used by all non-white people? It's complicated. Each person has the right to choose how they want to identify themselves, right? So we are all individual people. So this means that we can choose to call ourselves how we want to be called. For example, some Asian Americans have politically aligned themselves with Black people to fight against hate crimes and police brutality. They might call themselves people of color. Others might just want to say they are Asian American. See this website for more information about the idea about Asian Americans. Are Asian Americans white or are they people of color, right? So this article is actually really interesting that talks about one person's perspective about this question. Are Asian Americans white? Or are they considered people of color, right? Or maybe neither. So something to note about this, race in America is complex and complicated. Some people might not want to fall into any of these categories in their identification, and that's okay. Be open to learning and listening to people about their experiences. This is really important, right? So if you're curious about these racial terminology, ideas, or about the history of the United States, just ask people questions. You know, if you're open and you're friendly and you are curious, I'm sure people will want to talk to you about them. And this is my full list of resources here that I will put in the description of this video.
Thanks for watching my video, and let me know, like I said, if you have any questions. I can explain more about this issue in the United States. I know it's very different in this country compared to other countries around the world in terms of race relations and how to talk about race. So just let me know, and don't forget to share my video and like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.